In this video, we're going to take a look at the map view and operations toolbar.
Which is the toolbar area right underneath the menu bar.
Okay.
The first button will turn the grid on and off. I recommend you leave the grid on, since when you deal with geometry in Hammer, it's a good idea to have the grid on so that you don't disalign stuff and get leaks and stuff like that.
You want to use that grid to snap objects right up against each other.
I'm just going to go ahead and make a 3D object for the next button.
Okay.
The next button will turn a 3D grid on, and you can use that if you want to place stuff at certain...
like if you're aligning objects along the wall inside your map.
You can lower the grid size and higher the grid size, so if you lower it, you get a more detailed grid for fine-tuning, and if you higher it, you get a very big grid, so your object will snap very easy.
Cool.
It can go all the way up to 512 units and all the way down to 1 unit per grid space. Then there's these two buttons. I don't recommend playing with them. By the time of recording, they're not really working.
What they're supposed to do is save and load window layouts, but they don't really work at the moment, so I would avoid them altogether.
Then there's the carve tool, which is a modeling tool, which we're going to discuss later. We can group and ungroup geometry. So if I go ahead and double-click the geometry, select both of them.
How did you just make a second one of those? I gotta know.
Oh yeah. First, you select the geometry you want to duplicate. You hold down the Shift button, and you drag and drop.
Ooh, nice.
And you duplicate it. Then you can select both of them by holding down the Control key and pressing the other one. You press the Group button, and now if we try to select one part of the geometry, we select together. Both. We can then ungroup again, and now we have separated pieces.
Very cool.
If we go ahead and group it together again, we got the Ignore Grouping button, which will basically ignore grouping.
Kind of like opening a group inside of 3ds Max.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Go ahead and ungroup these again. Then we have the Hide Selected tool.
Sure.
We'll make a visibility group. We can call this right _geometry.
So this doesn't just hide geometry, it gives you the option of creating visibility groups.
Yes. You can toggle them on and off down here, and this button is supposed to show all of the hidden vis groups, but nothing happens, so by the time being it's not really working.
Now what about that button in between those two? You had you had hide selected, and what does the second one do?
If you select this piece of geometry and press that button, all geometry that's not selected will be hidden.
Ah, so it's hide unselected. I gotcha. Yeah. Cool.
Then there's basic cut, copy, and paste. So we can copy and paste a piece of geometry.
So it's like another way to go about duplicating.
Notice it will offset the piece a little bit, but that's just how it goes. These two buttons is concerning a area. So let's say you have a big hotel map, but you only want to render the lobby because you want to test something out.
Sure.
You can drag a box around the lobby area and activate the area, and now if you render only this space inside of the box will be rendered.
Right, basically this cordones off the area so that you, when you go to test the map, you only see whatever is inside this big box you just drawn. Very handy tool for testing out your map.
Go ahead and turn that off again. Then there's dealing with selection. You can choose to only select stuff by selecting selection handles, so now we need to hit the little X in the middle of the geometry to select it, whereas if it's turned off, we can press any part of the geometry to select it.
Gotcha.
There's this button will toggle on and off that you can drag and select stuff. If it's off, nothing will really happen. If
you just get a square that doesn't really do
anything. Get a cool square. So that's what this does. Texture lock is dealing with textures. When we duplicate a piece of geometry, and if texture lock is not on, and we move it or rotate it or scale it, the textures might come off a bit.
Like they might swim across the surface.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
This is dealing with textures, if they should be in world alignment or per face basis alignment. Give me a break. And these three buttons are dealing with displacement maps.
And we won't really be getting into displacement maps in this video.
No. And this will run the map, and this will toggle helpers on and off. And what helpers are, basically, let's say you have a spotlight, and you want to control how big the angle is.
Like the cone angle
yeah,
of the
cone
light.
angle. You can do that with the helpers.
It gives you visual feedback as to what the cone is right there in your viewport so that you can tell what your light's going to look like.
That's right.
So I guess really with that, that's the entire map view and operations toolbar. In the next video, we'll take a look at the map tools along the left side of the screen. Thanks a lot.